Literally 2 minutes ago, I just finished recording a video with this same individual giving a speech at the Oxford, whatever gathering they have at Oxford University, right? And he was essentially talking about woke culture and how woke culture has gone too far and essentially why it's ruining our society, which is something that I echo, right? I echo that sentiment. I believe it is the truth. I've seen it happen in our country. I've seen how this mentality and ideology of victimhood has literally stripped people of their very own power, and it's made people victims of their own life decisions, and they cannot take responsibility, and they blame everything on everybody else, and their lives continue to get worse and worse. It would be no issue and no problem if it was actually a solvent, if it was a cure to something, but in truth it is not. So anyway, I was inspired by the first video. It was the first ever video I've done responding or reacting to one of Konstantin Kisin's videos, and so I figured let's get into another one where he gets to, just have a little more of a conversational style video. So this is him being interviewed right after giving that speech, actually, on Piers Morgan's show. Now, again, this is about a year back, but these messages will always be relevant. I feel like after I'm long gone, great grandkids, maybe I came back, right? Shout out to the ancestors. Maybe I came back at some point. This is still going to be relevant because there will always be some level of a belief in culture that I am not in control of my own life situation, my own condition, that I do not have agency over my life, which is a lie. It is the greatest lie that has been sold, and it is the most destructive lie. So that being said, we're going to get into Piers Morgan, going into Konstantin Kisin's back and forth. And mind you, some of these individuals, I may agree with some of the things they say, other things I may not agree. I'll stop intermittently just to react and respond. So far, what I heard from him, he's a real sharp guy. He seems to be very much in the middle of the conversation. He doesn't lean too far one side, but instead, he seems to be a rational-minded free thinker. So I do appreciate that thus far, but I don't know much about him besides pretty much what I've seen there. So let's see what we get into.
Well, out of a rare victory for free speech, comedian and author Konstantin Kisin went viral after taking on woke culture in an Oxford Union speech. Let's have a look at some of the highlights.
This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a about saving the planet. There is only one thing we can do in this country to stop climate change, and that is to make scientific and technological breakthroughs that will create the clean energy that is not only clean, but also cheap. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. We know that the way to improve the world is...
He wasn't exaggerating when he said throwing soup on paintings. I've actually done a video titled, why I'm not, or why I don't believe in modern activism, something like that. Why I'm not a modern activist. And I began the video with a clip of these two young individuals, not going to assume their gender, right? These two young individuals who go into a museum with cans of chicken noodle soup, I guess, Campbell's, and they throw this food onto a Van Gogh painting because they're protesting oil companies. Now, these are people who just wasted food they could have given to the quote-unquote so-called poor that they care so much about, but instead poured onto a painting in protest while they're wearing oil-filled clothing. Even the jackets that they had on coming on, pretty sure there was oil in there. Maybe even a part of the can they threw or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just, again, there's no common sense in this. It is a strictly emotional radicalization of one's mind when you get into a belief that you're not worthy or deserving or not competent or capable of changing your life. You start to become envious and you start to become jealous of those who are doing something for themselves and are getting different results. And so you try to level the playing field by dragging them down. It's the old crabs in the barrel mentality. So again, I'm gonna let this play out a little bit, and then we're gonna have our back and forth as per usual.
Is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours to forget about that.
Yes.
The slow hand clap. That's what every comedian works for, Piers.
Let me do it faster. I've done the Oxford Union, tough crowd normally, but you actually won a lot of them over. They were quite respectful. And I think you were probably a bit surprised by the response. It's gone viral, global, all over America as well, because it really resonated with people, I think, rather like me, where, I'm not right-wing, I'm not left-wing, I'm kind of slightly centre, I guess, politically about stuff. A liberal more than not, but I find this ultra woke mentality so illiberal that it borders on the very fascism they profess to hate most. So to see you go into the lion's den a bit with all these woke students, and actually what I thought was impressive about it, Konstantin, was the way you didn't demonise them. And maybe that is the way to progress and get this woke nonsense dealt with properly, is that you don't demonise them, you actually show them a better way.
I think so, and like you, I identify as politically non-binary, Piers. And so that's the angle I was approaching from. And look, the fact is, both you and I know that when we were 18, 20, we were idiots as well, and we were very cocky and sure of ourselves, and we thought we knew the answers to everything.
That's a great point. This ideology is oftentimes received by those who just simply don't know what they don't know. 10 years ago, I thought I knew more than the man that I am today. And today I know significantly more. And still I realize that there's so much I do not know, which is why I continue to look to educate myself in different ways and to be a student of life as opposed to, this is the whole holy truth and nothing else exists and that's all there is. There are fundamental truths, I believe, fundamental core values that I hold. But besides those, it's like most things are malleable and there is... there's conversation to be had. And that's why I feel it is important for us to have the conversations instead of, just staying in our own little pockets offended. So
we knew the answers to everything.
What we didn't have was the internet to brainwash us.
And we didn't have this very powerful ideology, actually. Wokeness is an ideology, and there's some very strong concepts behind it. But that all aside, I found that I had a very interesting encounter because you once have seen this, but we had to wait quite a long time before the debate started. And I actually was talking to one of the students in the bar, and she couldn't believe that I even thought the woke people existed. Like, to her, this was unicorns. But she came up to me after the debate and asked for a selfie. And that's kind of what I thought really summed up the whole experience. We've got to remember, these are young people in their mind. They're open to persuasion. We got to make better arguments. And I think antagonizing people, and we've all been there, you and I and everything else, my journey with my show, Trigonometry, it's been an evolution too.
Yes.
I haven't started out like this necessarily. But what I've come to now, and maybe it's being a father of a young child now as well, I'm starting to see that, these are kids, and we have a responsibility to persuade them, to convince them with rational argument. And look, when you're speaking to bright people like the ones at Oxford, you've got a chance.
I mean, one of the worst aspects of wokery is the way that people now feel too afraid to express opinions. And it's becoming a real thing where people...
This is big. This is actually a part of my own personal journey is y'all might have been watching me for a while, maybe the last 2 years that I really started taking YouTube serious. Actually, to be honest, I started taking it serious like a year ago, a little less than a year ago, but been on the platform for at least 2 years. And I talk to my girl about this all the time. I was so afraid of being canceled before I even made my way up. Like, I was so afraid of telling the whole truth. Like, you've probably noticed a change in my content if you used to watch me and you watch me now, right? But I was so deeply afraid to give my stance on a majority of these conversations. I would kind of keep it on the surface. I would, speak on spiritual things, etc., that would hopefully not offend. There was still a people pleaser baked into that, even after I already, started on my healing journey and getting to recognize that I was a people pleaser, and this was rooted in, unresolved trauma. This was rooted in the fear of being not accepted or unvalidated or invalidated by those around me and feeling I was worthless and undeserving of love, etc., unless I showed up a certain way. Basically, my point is this. I used to care so much about being crucified at the altar of, people's opinions, when now I don't give a damn, because I understand that everybody's always going to have an opinion, and those who try to shame you into thinking the way that they think, they're nothing more than brainwashed, conditioned, and programmed themselves. and they're fighting to defend their own stance, not for your sake, but simply to keep themselves from facing their own truth. And once I accepted that, it became so much easier to deliver this message. That coupled with the fact of, so what? If you don't like me, you don't like me, right? As long as I like me, that's all that matters.
You know, I had Dame Joan Collins on here, didn't want to say what she thought a woman was. And she's one of my favourite people in the world, Joan, and obviously knows what she believes a woman is, but didn't want to raise her head over a parapet just to be shot down by the trans lobby or whatever lobby it may be at any given moment. There's this mob mentality. If you don't agree with me, you must be cancelled immediately, shamed, vilified, J.K. Rowling, whoever it may be. How have we got to this place? What's fueling it? How do we deal with it?
Well, first of all, I know that you're shocked by it, and I think a lot of people in the West are shocked, but actually, as someone who grew up in the Soviet Union, this is very familiar. I mean, this is exactly what we had, and that's one of the reasons I'm in this country, is my grandfather said the wrong thing and was forced into exile. So this is actually, if you think about human history, pretty standard. We just didn't expect it to be happening in the 21st century. And I think technology is a big part of it. Social media allows people to mob other people.
Well, it fuels also tribalism. It fuels this sort of righteous indignation that people, the victimhood.
And
people
there's
get
power. Don't forget, there's also
Oh, there's
power.
real power. And the power actually manifests itself from the mob going to corporate world and demanding that they fire people and get rid of people who don't agree with their view.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, particularly, and, you know, this isn't an attack, but, you know, if you don't have a lot of meaning in your own life, this is a way to get some meaning because you tap this thing on your phone or on your keyboard and suddenly a famous person's getting cancelled.
Right.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night.